Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast 245. Wow, here we are, middle of the year, first day of summer. It's already gone by. Woo! Where did the year go? It's cranking. I want to thank you guys for helping me make it go by so quickly. I appreciate all the TLC you keep sending out. I know we don't make the big news for one of the main podcasts, but you know, the thousands of you that do tune in and the many hundreds of you that communicate with me, I'm very grateful. So thank you ever so much. Keep doing what you're doing. You're a real great group. I enjoy your photography. Appreciate it ever so much. Also want to thank my good friends at Bedford Camera, bedfords.com. Great group of folks, great service, great product lines, great discounts, and of course, we mentioned the old MOOSE discount. You're going to save even more on top of their already great low prices, free shipping, and for most states, no sales tax. And I want to thank them for something that you're going to see being released here shortly that I'm doing in conjunction with Bedford's Camera. It's going to be a killer experience. So make sure you tune in later. Thank them for being part of it. You guys are great. I'm going to get right to this week's topic, as always. And I actually had a number of different, I guess you could say, titles for this week. I went with the Fluster moment because, well, photographers, when they get flustered, tend to, everything just goes hell in a handbasket real fast. And typically, the fluster moment comes from doing something or not doing something that is obvious or simple or, it's not like a new thing. It's something that you knew you should have done or you should do or you could do and just didn't. And in that fluster moment, what happens? You miss that photograph. And, lightning doesn't strike twice. Typically, whatever you're doing, there's just that one moment to get that one perfect pose or centigrade of light or that gesture or that color. And you know what I'm talking about. We've all gone through it. I've gone through it. It's part of photography. Now, that fluster moment really comes when you boil it down to the fact that the photographer and the camera, or camera lens, however you want to look at it, aren't in concert. They're out of sync somehow. So the goal here is to be in sync. And this is a real challenge. When you work that 9-to-5 job and your main photography is the weekends and your time off and your vacation, staying in sync with your camera is a real challenge. And I've talked about many times, practicing your hand holding one day or, every day, every week for 5 minutes. So I've gone through that. I'm not going to talk about that. That still applies. I want to talk about some other things that, some basic planning and some practice will keep you in sync with your camera and your camera gear and your techniques and yourself as a photographer to help you when you get out there, you don't get flustered. Because I have seen way too many photographers, when they get flustered, boom, everything goes just haywire. For example, a lot of tripod heads have knobs that you have to screw, either for the panning or the tilting or the ball head or the clamp. Now, all those little knobs, a lot of them are spring-loaded. If you do any kind of traveling, like you're in your vehicle or in an aircraft, those heads start to jiggle. And hopefully you know that when you are traveling, you don't have any of those things locked down tight. You want to have them loose a little bit so they don't vibrate so tight you can't loosen them when you need them. At the same time, you don't want them so loosey-goosey that vibration makes them become loose, so when you get to where you want to shoot, things aren't working. So this is, this planning and prep and practice, let's just put it right to test with that, are ball head, our tripod head, our tripod itself. So before you go, make sure that all those knobs aren't cranked down tight. They're just barely broken loose. And then when you get to where you want to shoot, the first thing you should do is not just stick it on your tripod, but check all those knobs, make sure they didn't vibrate looser. So when you go to shoot at sunrise and you're in the dark and you're trying to make things happen, the ball head doesn't go boing. Make sure that your locking knobs on your tripod legs don't have any junk in them, sand and grit. Make sure they're not super loose or neither super tight. The feet on most tripods, they get loose over time, and if you're not careful, all of a sudden they'll just unscrew and you'll lose one. So when you arrive on location, make sure those are all tight in the leg. These are all little things. I mean, when you first start, getting ready to shoot, and all of a sudden the tripod isn't doing what it should, and you've got that killer subject in front of you, but you can't get the tripod set up quick enough, that's a real flustered moment that you just things just go bad fast. And if you're really anal like myself, you're going to do a little extra practice before you even leave the house, setting up the tripod, getting the camera in the hot shoe, making sure everything's ready to go. So you are, and the tripod head are as in sync as possible. A lot of people get lenses that have variable f-stops. It's like a 4 or 5.6. It's a real common. Two things happen. First, they aren't aware where about in the zoom it might switch from 4 to 5.6. Get to know that point. Two, if you want to be consistent with those kind of lenses and the fact that you don't have to really think about it, if you have a f4 to 5.6 variable lens, or whatever the variable f-stops might be, you might consider doing what I do. And I always put if it's a 4 to f5.6, I just set the camera at 5.6, so it's consistent as I go back and forth. I'm not seeing a change in the shutter speed, because I look at that shutter speed and it tells me if things are working correct or not working correct. Like the lens isn't always all the way attached to the camera body, for example. Or maybe I left the polarizer on and it's sucking down 2 stops. And if you know your shutter speeds and your basic daylight, you can tell these things. That's one way of keeping from getting flustered, by having a consistent f-stop. And if you shoot a lot of lenses that aren't variable, they're 2.8 or 4 or 5.6, then you might just always be in the habit, and this is what I do, is that the camera body is always set so the lens is going to be at its widest aperture, its smallest number, 2.8, 4, whatever it is. And so you put it on there, you practice. I know that if I go 2 clicks and then it's 2.8, it's going to be 4. I don't have to look at the camera. A couple of clicks of the sub-command dial, and boom, I know what f-stop I'm at. These ways of becoming very familiar with your gear helps you from being flustered. How about ISO? More than once, I've gone out shooting with folks, and they were shooting late at night, shooting at high ISO. Next day they start shooting, and halfway through the shoot they realize their ISO is cranked up to some crazy number, and their shutter speed's flashing at them because the number's so high the camera can't find a fast enough shutter speed for the right exposure. Get in the habit of, always putting that ISO to the number that you like. So for me, it's real simple. It's always going to be the basement, 100. It's not like a rocket science. That's where it's always set. And then, again, like my aperture, I hold down the ISO. I know I click it 3 times, I'm going to change it from 100 to 200. 3 more times, 200 to 400. I don't have to look at it. I know I push the button down, I feel the clicks, I'm set to go. Have these little patterns that you can, rely on. So when other things come up that might goof you up and get you flustered, you smooth right through it. Now, autofocus mode. I'm going to do a video here shortly on autofocus modes because, again, autofocus is being blamed for a lot of things that it's not its fault. It's a computer. It can do X amount, and it can do more than ever. But it's still up to you, like any computer, a garbage in is garbage out. And if you're using autofocus mode that's the incorrect one, or one that doesn't work for what you're trying to do, you can't expect it to make up for your bad decision. So know your autofocus modes. I know, for example, that the null, the default for myself, for both the D6 and the Z6 II, is the auto area AF with the animal eye detection. That's just a given. And I'm here to tell you the D6 with that latest AF upgrade. So when you're in auto area AF and you have that red square, you put that red square as really quick, fast, intuitive. You put it where you want the camera to look the most of the time, and bam, that darn thing works. So when you turn the camera on, have the AF mode selected that works best for you, your photography that the camera can provide. It just helps from that being flustered. And understand that there's a ring on the lens, and when you make it go back and forth and rotate it, it too can focus the subject. And you have focus peaking. It's a killer combo. How about just camera presets? I'm a big camera preset person, and I have a number of them. I have what's Nikon called standard. I have black and white. Those are my two main ones. I've got 17 and 18. These are presets that I've gone through. You can see them on the website. Tried and true performance. And I know that 99.9% of the time, I'm going to shoot in Nikon standard. It delivers. And I know that for me in my photography. Do you know what works best for you? One thing that I see a lot of photographers doing, and they get some really flustered really fast, is they're out there shooting and they're trying to figure out this stuff in the field, and they start going through the menu and through settings. And the subject's going by. Sometimes the subject dies before you get the picture. It's like, hello, you can take the picture? The time to figure this out is not when the subject's in front of you. Find the one that works for you. If you don't know, try standard. Go to the website, get all my settings for camera standard, put them in there, give it a shot. You'll be surprised at the performance it's going to deliver in your images. Get used to that. Have that. The time experiment is not when you're out with a major shoot, unless that shoot is designed strictly for experiment. If you're out to get the shots that makes you just tingle all over and you want to share it with people, that's not the time to do the testing or experimenting. How about if you have like special tools? One I'm going to pick on because I've been using it a bunch lately is the MyOps, the Smart Plus. Now, the MyOps Smart Plus, it does a ton. It's a great little tool. First people say to me is, wow, it's expensive. If I showed you my drawer of lightning triggers that don't work, and I added up all the price of those that don't work, they blow away the price of the MyOps, which, boom, it works nonstop. A couple things about the MyOps, though. So the MyOps, I'm using it mostly for lightning. And when you do lightning in the daytime, when you have some ambient light, this sucker nails the exposure. Back that up. It nails the lightning. You have to figure out the exposure. And there's a lot of ways of doing it, but they have a basic setting. You go to the website, it tells you that. Now, if you're like myself and you use the MyOps basically during the summer months, 3-4 months, you don't use it again until the next summer, at least for myself, I forget those settings. Not anymore. They're on a label, the label's stuck on a case, the basic setting, boom, they are. Right there, every time. No guesswork. Manual, ISO 200, 125th, f11. That's going to give me, the starting point for my ambient light lightning pictures. And it works repeatedly. The other thing about MyOps you need to understand is it works Bluetooth with your iPhone. And when it talks through the iPhone, it's going to tell you a lot that there is a firmware upgrade. That's one of the best things about the MyOps. Constantly doing firmware upgrades. Last thing you want to do is go out and you have a great storm. You turn on your MyOps and it says, oops, firmware upgrade. So it's one of those things you want to plan, prep, and practice. So have that MyOps ready to go before you go out. And there's even the slightest chance of lightning, turn on that MyOps. Check for the firmware, get it up to date. Make sure it's all working. So when you're out there shooting, all you're doing is having fun. And that is so the bottom line. When things go south and you get real flustered with things, oh lordy, that's when the sweat starts pouring out. You start mumbling, and the fun and the joy of what you're doing slowly evaporates. So hey, we can prevent all these things. Keep this in mind. Make a checklist. I have them everywhere. So when I leave, I am as prepared and ready as possible. So when I pull the camera out of the bag, all I get to do is smile and click and enjoy the moment. Well, I hope you folks have another great week. Love to hear from you. I know it's summer, we're out shooting, but I'm here if I can help. And remember, as you're out there shooting, to make every click your story.